Welcome to Kava and Kettlebells, where we talk about kava, fitness, and life. Let's get kavafied.
All right. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. This is Charles.
Hey guys, this is Heidi. Thank you so much for tuning back in. If you haven't already, please take 5 seconds, go ahead and thumbs up this episode. Hit the bell to subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Kava_kettlebells and share with your friends and family to really help us get this message out. All right, on today's episode, we are going to be talking about why you should not go to a Kava bar.
Controversial.
I know, we're gonna ruffle some feathers with this one, but before that, we will go ahead and give you our workout of the day. So I'll start, and mine was back and biceps today. So I always start with warming up with light weights, doing bicep curls with dumbbells and bent over rows. Then I went into some bicep curls. I kind of alternate. I'll do both arms at a time, and then I'll kind of go one at a time. I just kind of mix it up throughout the set. Then I went into some chin-ups. Okay. So then I did some chin-ups. Just for our listeners, as a reminder, a chin-up is when your palms are facing you. A pull-up are when your palms are facing away from you, and then you have a neutral grip. So I like to do chin-ups. I'm a little bit stronger at those. And then I did some weighted chin-ups. So I hold a dumbbell between my ankles, and I do weighted chin-ups. So I'm able to push out more chin-ups than I am pull-ups. So then I did some seated rows on the cable machine. Then I did some barbell reverse curls, and I would end that with a stagnant hold, just like holding it in place. And reverse curls are really great at working the outside of that bicep muscle, but also the forearm and your grip strength, especially because, oh my gosh, he's all about like the jokes today.
I feel for the people listening on audio, like you gotta go to YouTube to see.
He's making lots of motions, and he just made like
you're like a cat.
Like a cat, yeah. So supinated is when your palms are up, and pronated is when your palms are down. And we do most everything supinated. So when you're doing a pronated reverse curl, it really helps that grip strength and that forearm. So I did reverse curls. I would end with a stagnant hold. Then I did some lat pull downs and some in and out curls. So, or some call them rainbow curls. So you kind of turn your arms out and you bring it in like a normal curl, bring it back up and out. And I like to end with that. It really burns those biceps.
Yeah, my favorite in and out curl is when I go to in and out like a burger.
Oh my God. All about the jokes today.
Too much kava. All right.
So. And then I ended with one arm rows and elliptical.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. So one thing I like to remember, the supinated versus pronated is soup. I think of like, what's up?
Yeah, that's what I think. What's up, guys? Raise the roof.
That's how I remember it. All right. For me, I did chest and triceps today. Kept a pretty basic workout actually. So I'm doing more barbell bench lately. I'm just trying to kind of like go back to that because I always do dumbbell. And it's good to mix things up. So I did heavy barbell bench. And then for the rest of my chest workout, I did heavy incline barbell bench. And then I did dumbbell flies. So not a lot for my chest. I'm so fly. What's up?
I'm just trying to get on his level. I'm not as good as it.
Get out of here. But yeah, so I only did 3 chest exercises today. Like I said, I finished up with dumbbell flies. I did do dips too, but I kind of see that as kind of like a combo of chest and tris. And then for triceps today, did just a couple of extension exercises on the cables. So I did the rope, and then I did a straight bar push down, and then I did heavy skull crushers, right? And with those, what I like to do is I like to do both the easy bar and the straight bar. It just kind of depends. If I do the easy bar, I like to kind of go in a little bit closer. So I start with that. So I did a close grip, easy bar, skull crusher. Then I went to a wider grip skull crusher. And that's what I did for chest and tris. So basic workout today, but honestly, when it comes to lifting, the basics are the best. You just got to be intense with it. And then ended up with stair stepper because I think I mentioned last episode as kind of going into the, spring, summertime here, trying to, just kind of shred down a little bit, get more back down to that 225, 230 range. as opposed to where I'm sitting at right now, which is about 240 pounds.
Kind of going off what Charles said about, the basics, I think that's something that is really important for our listeners who are super into fitness. Is it's really important to think of your workouts almost as practicing. Like, you don't always want to be pushing crazy heavy weights. You really just want to focus on, I'm practicing this movement, and the more you practice it, the better you're going to become at that movement, and the better benefits your muscles will have because of that. So it's not always about just pushing the weight, but really look at it as practicing those basics and being just so good with your form on those basics. And that will help you so much more than pushing heavy weight all the time.
I had a really bad joke I was going to make, but
I'm sure all the jokes are just like swirling around.
Can I say it?
Yes, of course we want to hear your jokes always.
I don't know. Makes I'm always thinking about, sex motor, but like
Truth.
practice makes perfect. And same thing like in the bedroom.
Oh my God.
Practice makes perfect. Going through all the positions.
Think about it as practicing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like,
all right.
That's why you got to do it daily.
Oh, okay. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to the episode. Okay.
What is the episode about? All right. Again, this might be controversial. I want to put it out there that we are not saying do not go to Kava Bars. Okay. We go to Kava Bars all the time. We love Kava Bars. We have a podcast about Kava and botanicals, right? And we have a lot of friends who are Kava Bar owners and work at Kava Bar. So preface disclaimer saying, please support your local Kava Bars. Okay. But there are some reasons that you might not want to always go to a Kava Bar. And we'll say this too, that we've talked to a lot of people who think that you have to go to a Kava Bar to drink kava and kratom botanicals.
Yeah, like people who the idea of doing it themselves at home, just they're like, no, you can't do that. Like, we're not professionals. You have to go to a Kava Bar. So this episode is all about, the time and place to go to a Kava Bar, and why, the reasons why you might want to choose not to go to a Kava Bar. And I think it's, really important for those on their kava journey to kind of take that control as well and understand that, you can do this yourself. So number one is the cost. And it is
hands down the cost.
Kava is a more expensive, plant, and there's a reason for that. It takes a long time to harvest a kava plant. It takes, for a good kava plant to be full grown and good to harvest, a minimum of 3 years. On average, about 5 years, 5 or more. And that's a long time. And it may get to that, third, fourth year, there's a natural disaster, something happens, and that crop is ruined, and you don't just get one more year to grow that back. So you have to understand the process. It is manual labor to pull that massive root out of the ground. It's not a one-man job. And so you have to understand that. That's why it costs more. Then, of course, the Kava Bar has to make money. It's a business. So we kind of did a little math to kind of break it down. So if you want to kind of share that.
So on average, and again, average, you can get a pound of kava, traditional grind. This is not instant kava. Remember, instant kava or micronized kava is always going to be more expensive. Your best bang for the buck is getting the traditional or medium grind kava that you prep yourself, that has to be strained, right? Now, for traditional kava, and this is on Amazon, this is through vendor websites, on average, a pound of kava costs anywhere from between $50 to about $60. So we're using an average of $55 for a pound of kava. Now, a pound of kava will have roughly about 90 tablespoons worth of powder in that bag. Now, typically, when we make a shell, a serving at home, every serving we use 2 tablespoons. So let's just say we're using an Alu ball, and the Alu ball is a single kava maker, and instead of using a strainer bag, it's a little ball, green ball. You get this on Amazon. It's made by Kavafied, and you put 2 tablespoons of kava powder in there, and you shake it up in like a shaker cup, and boom, you got a serving. Super easy. Takes literally 1 minute to make. All right. Now, so let's say, again, the average 1 pound bag of kava has 90 tablespoons of kava in it. Okay. So that gives you about 45 servings using 2 tablespoons per serving. That comes out to about $1.20-ish a serving. Okay? $1.20 a serving. When you go to a Kava bar, for a single shell, you're probably going to pay a minimum of $5. Been to some Kava bars where a single shell Kava costs up to $10.
Yeah, so it definitely depends on the area, inflation. The costs are different, but we've seen a single shell anywhere from $5 to $10.
Single shell.
A single shell. Now, a double shell is typically anywhere from, again, like $8 to $12. And sometimes, there's definitely specials. You can go for the happy hour. Most happy hours I've seen are a double for the price of a single. So those are, available, but even still, you get a double that costs $8. That's 2 servings. That's still about $4 per serving. You're still more than double what it would cost if you just made it at home.
Yes. When I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, Kava is so expensive," I was like, "All right, well, like, what are you doing?" Like, "Oh, I go to the Kava bar every day." And I'm like,
that's crazy.
you are spending so much money when you can make this at home. You can literally be, for what you spent in one day at a Kava bar, you can buy a pound of Kava and that will last you, a couple weeks at home.
Plus you have to consider, the tipping the Kava tender as well. So when you go to a Kava bar, again, we are pro Kava bars. Like we, go to Kava bars all the time. But you are paying for someone else to be making that kava. You're paying for the experience. You're paying for the community. You're paying for like the fun drinks that they can make to, spice it up. So it's not that you should never go to a kava bar, but if this is something that you're drinking every day, you need to learn to make it on your own, and you'll save so much money.
And I will say too, like, guys, there is no secret to brewing kava. Like, and I'm sorry if a kava bar tells you that, like, there's a certain process when it comes to making kava. Like, no, there's different ways you can strain it. There's different, some people do different steeping methods. Some people, claim theirs are more potent, and at the end of the day, it comes down to the quality of the kava is a massive factor, right? So how good is the kava? And then did you prep it correctly? And prepping kava correctly is not that hard. I've been to multiple kava bars where I'm like, this is the weakest kava I have ever tried. I can make this shit. I know my kava at home, 1 shell, and I'll be feeling it more than 3 of the shells that you guys just served me.
So this brings us to another point is, how...
I do want to hit on the cost of kratom too.
Okay.
Kratom, and this is something that, like, sorry for spilling the beans on the kava bar industry, but kratom is typically where most kava bars make their money, right?
Kratom is the bread and butter of kava bars and like the profits that they're making.
Yeah. So most of the sales at kava bars come from kratom. There are a couple bars out there that just do kava. And yes, obviously, if kava is the only thing being sold, that's going to be the source of income. But most kava bars, their income source comes from kratom. Now, kratom is dirt cheap. To buy powdered kratom, bags of kratom, kilos of kratom, whether it's leaf, crushed leaf, or just the powder, is very, very cheap. And the prices are kind of across the board when it comes to kava bars. Typically, like, just a plain tea is not too bad priced, but again, like, I'm not kidding you guys. Like, you can make it at home for pennies on the dollar versus what you'd be getting at a kava bar.
Now, again, you're paying for that experience. You're paying for those really fun concoctions that they make, the really tasty teas and the shots, and you're paying for the experience. So that's okay. Like, there's a time and place for it. But if you're someone who relies on this to use it every single day, like, take that power into your own hands and learn how to do it for yourself.
Yeah. And this comes more from a place that, like, I think right now, the past couple of years, like, money is tight for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it comes from a place that, like, kava bars can be very expensive. And when you use these herbs, adaptogens, you see how they benefit your life. A lot of people are like, wow, like, Kava every day is really great for me, right?
Just like someone would drink coffee every day. You know, some people rely on kratom, and I think that's okay. Like, there is a responsible way to use kratom every day. So I don't want people to feel bad about that. You know, if you are using it responsibly, you just need to be careful that you're not continually increasing getting to those really, you know, high levels.
So like, if you're on a budget out there and you're trying to, you know, save money, you know, save the Kava Bar for that kind of like, you know, once a week or even like once a month treat, and then start making this at home, because and this kind of goes to the next point, but like, I like Kava Bars. I love Kava Bars, right? We go to them and stuff, but I really prefer making my own kava because I have control over how I make it and the strength of it. And again, like, I know it's me prepping it. So like, again, like I get to go, I'll choose what kava I want. So I'll order the kava that I want, that I know I like, that I know sits well with me. And then I can make it myself, and I can make it just how I like it. So that's also a lot of reasons why, you know, primarily we've always drinking kava and kratom at home.
Yeah, especially, you know, when we lived in Alabama, there wasn't a Kava Bar, you know, anywhere. And when we were in Tucson, the beginning of our journey in Tucson, when we first started getting into kava, there wasn't a Kava Bar yet there either. So the majority, I would say, of our kava journey has been us just playing around with different kavas at home and learning. You know, that was a journey at first. You know, when we first started making it, we did not know what we were doing. And there are tips and tricks, you know, using warm water. There are things that, you know, certain kava bars do to make it better. But, you know, like Charles said, this kind of brings us to the second point of, you can make it your own. Like, at home, you can make it as strong as you want. And there's some kava bars that are like on point. They give you a good amount. They give you a good dosing. It hits strong. It hits powerful. And then there's some kava bars where I'm like, what? Like, I just paid $8 for like a splash of kava. I don't feel anything. And because they didn't make it as strong as I would have made it, you know, at home.
Yeah, that's so kind of the next theme that we're kind of saying here is like, when you go to a kava bar, you don't know how they prepped it. You don't know how they made it. You don't know really the strength. Like, the strength of like kratom teas varies across bars.
Yeah.
I've gone to some kava bars where like I've had a kratom tea and like I like could have paid for water essentially, right? I've been to some kava bars where I've had kratom tea. What for me, like what I assume like is just like a you know, my normal dose, like a medium tea, and it has made me nauseous because it's so strong. So some of the consistency out there is kind of off the board. And that goes into also like finding a quality kava bar that knows how to, you know, make the right drinks, use the right dosages, and not give their customers a bad experience.
Yeah. And so that is another, kind of brings us into the third point of the vibe. The vibe of the kava bar just might not be your vibe. And so if it's a kava bar that you trust and you've been to many times and you know like the experience you're going to get, that's different. But another reason to not go to a kava bar is if you're expecting a certain sort of experience, you can often just create that at home and you know the experience you're going to get. It takes playing around with different kava bars and to finding the one that you fit best with. There's a kava bar for everyone. I fully believe that, but not every kava bar is for everyone. And there are very specific vibes. And you might go into a kava bar and you just like, these are not my people. This is not my vibe. And then you just wasted that money and that time where you could have just, you know, stayed at home with your family and your loved ones and had the vibe that you wanted.
Yeah, so I do want to go back to the previous point just a little bit. There were some things I still kind of want to hit on a tad. And these are kind of just like things to look out for, kind of when it goes back to kava bars and how they prep things, right? So when you get teas, right, some kava bars will use the crush leaf tea, and that's the actual leaves of the kratom, and they'll brew it like a normal tea. And then some kava bars will use like the kratom powder, and it's like a very, very fine ground up powder. And I'm not saying either or is better or worse. Most people usually tolerate like the kratom tea brewed traditionally a little bit better versus the powder. Now we use the powder every day. That's how we like to get it. And like I said, we do kratom once a day pre-workout, and we take that powder and we mix it up in our pre-workout. Some things to kind of look out for, right? If you're getting kratom and it's got like a lot of sludge on the bottom, that might be because they're using powder. And with that, just be careful, because again, you don't know how many scoops of that powder they're putting in there. Could be more than you're used to, could be less than you're used to. And also like that also might not be going through the right like filtration process too. So that's something to kind of look at with kratom. Then with kava, how I usually look at kava, how it's being served as well, is, when I make my kava at home, like I said, I make it a little bit stronger. So the water that the kava is in, that's prepped in, should start getting like a nice dark color, right? I've been to some kava bars where I've gotten a shell of kava and I could put like my finger in it, right? And I can see like a couple inches down. It's like a very watered down kava. Now, some people like watered down kava because they might be sitting there for like a couple hour session drinking kava and they want to be able to go through a lot of it. They want it to last, right? But again, if you're paying $8 a shell for kava, you should expect a certain potency to it and not getting watered down kava.
And a lot of kava bars also, so I like when a kava bar asks me if I want, creamer in it or coconut milk. And there is, fats, make the kava stronger. So that is why it's really common to add creamer or, coconut milk to it, because it makes it stronger. But I also feel like I get really offended when a kava bar will just automatically put that in and not ask me. And in my opinion, I've sometimes been to kava bars where they do that, and I think it's them trying to water it down. And where it doesn't even taste like kava, it purely tastes like coconut milk. And I'm like, is there even kava in this? This is like so light. And in my opinion, it's their way of watering it down. And so that's just, other things that you have to kind of think about is, like how strong is it? Are they giving you all the kava, or are they kind of watering it down with, water or cream? And when you're at home, you're able to just make it exactly how you want it. And you don't have to, you prepared it, your hands touched it, if your hands are clean, what went into making it. And it's just something to consider.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to just like making food at home, right? If you've cleaned the knives, if you've cleaned the pans, if you've washed your hands before making stuff. And again, the majority of kava bars have standards in place, right? To where you can
see most of them, a lot of them doing it. So that's another way that you can kind of be able to trust, but if you can't, that's something to think about.
I never know. So this, and that's kind of like stretching a tad, but at the same time, we're saying this because we've seen things and we've talked to people who have visited establishments before and have gotten sick. And then lo and behold, things kind of come out to where maybe the right process wasn't in place, developing those drinks, or some of those standards that could have been in place to kind of help bolster the safety around the kava and kratom. And again, that's why it's kind of like a shout out to the Kava Coalition. They're trying to kind of put more of these standards in places around bars. That way kind of everyone's on the same page when it comes to having the right SOPs, so standard operating procedures, when they're making kava, kratom drinks that way.
Making it and storing it, because that's a huge issue as well. Some kava bars where they make the kava, and kava is good. You can make it and keep it in the fridge, but there is an end date to that. You can't keep it, indefinitely, and you have to store it properly. And there have been kava bars that aren't storing it properly, and that's how people get sick.
Yeah, and again, it all goes back to, we want to protect the consumer. That way our industry, and that way our beloved plants that we consume don't get put under the wrong spotlight, right? But yeah, cool. So yes, going back to the vibe though. And this is kind of touchy, because Kava bars in general are very welcoming places. They're awesome, right? You go in there. We talk about this all the time, that the Kava community is great. You can go to a Kava bar and you could be talking to people that you never would have talked to in your life before. But you sit down, have a couple shells of Kava, you start talking, right? It's very cool. It's a very, awesome melting pot. But, and this is, our whole thing about doing this podcast is getting people who aren't in the community into it and trying these plants. And some of the barriers for people is sometimes they go to some Kava bars and they don't feel like it's their vibe.
Yeah.
Right? Because let's be honest, Kava is sort of a counterculture, and I think it for some quote unquote normal people, when they go to Kava bars, they're kind of like, what is this? And it's just kind of like, do I fit in here? Will I be accepted? So there's some hesitation. And that's honestly what we get from a lot of people. They'll be like walking by Kava bars and be like, oh yeah, I saw a Kava bar, but
and they'll pop their head in and they'll be like, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And we've been, granted, we have Kava and kettlebell, so we're all about this industry and we're all about learning so much about every Kava bar. So, we go on trips and we make a point to try and stop by as many, Kava bars that we can. Yeah, we've definitely walked into some and we're like, holy, I do not feel good. But we kind of push through and we try and talk to them anyways. And some of them, even when we do try and talk to them, it's still like, nope, I'm confirming this is not for me. But sometimes it also surprises us with the people that we are able to meet, and we are able to kind of break through that barrier and realize that, we're the same. And so, we still encourage you, if you are, if you don't feel comfortable at first, just try and talk to people. But at the same time, it's your time. If you feel uncomfortable, you haven't gotten that Kava in you yet to make you talkative and open you up, and you don't want to waste your time, you just don't feel, I'm very much into vibes, you walk into a space and if it's not for you, you don't want to waste your time, and that can be a great opportunity to just do it at home and just have the experience that you want and not have to risk, a new place.
Yeah. And again, this one's kind of tough talking about because I don't want people to be swayed from going to Kava bars. Again, you just have to go. And also, this is what's so cool about the Kava bar community is every Kava bar does, preface, yes, there's the Kava bar chains. And for the most part, they have the same decor. They have the same the same menus, the same vibe. But especially the more the independently owned Kava bars, they all kind of have their own vibe. You get a lot of the regulars in there, which, kind of help shape the vibe too. And, if you go to Kava bar and it's not your vibe, well, there might be a Kava bar, a couple miles away that is your vibe.
Yeah.
And kind of fits what you feel like is your mold a little bit more.
And so just to kind of go off that more, I don't want it to sound like we're anti-Kava bar, but we just want you to know that even if there is a Kava bar that maybe is just not your vibe or is a little weird, you can still enjoy Kava. You can still do it yourself and then take the time to find the Kava bar that is going to be the best fit for you. But that doesn't need to stop you from enjoying the wonders of Kava. You can do it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It is funny. And I don't know, I'll kind of give a personal anecdote, but not gonna name the Kava bar.
Let's see if I can figure it out.
Maybe it was in Florida. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was in
What's
Arizona.
The story?
Who knows where it was? But
maybe it was Alabama. Oh, nope.
The only Kava bar in Alabama was our house.
Yeah.
No, but walked in and it was definitely I'll just say it right and hopefully no one gets offended, but super hippie vibe. Okay. That kind of person. And, I kind of stick out. I'm a very big dude, tattooed, don't really fit that vibe. And I could tell walking in immediately, I was being judged. When eyes are on you and when you almost feel like people don't want you in that space. And which is funny because I do feel a lot of people on that side are all about like, oh, we're so inclusive, we're so like open to everyone, but then like you got a dude like me walking in and they're like, nope. And then even talking to the kava tender, very much like, have you heard of kava before?
So
Do you know what botanicals are?
To sort of set the stage, Charles and I never go into places telling them that we're like kava and kettlebells. Some people know, but most people we don't. And so we always just I don't want to say we're testing the kava tender, but kind of, like we don't tell them. So they always say like, oh, are you familiar with kava and kratom? We go, yeah. And then Charles' test too is he'll ask the cultivar question. What kind of cultivars do you have? And if they don't,
that's what you call.
I know. And if they don't know what a cultivar is, he's like, strike one.
No, it's not.
No, he's joking. He's joking.
Because like, what else do you call it? I guess like types, right? But I say cultivars.
Yeah,
that's the proper way.
I know. It's just funny. But that being said, yeah, I do remember now. Now that you say this, I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, they were super like, you don't belong
very,
here.
Very, very like snobby about it, and that was just kind of like, yo, like I'm, do you even
know who I am?
No, but like, yeah, like we're not like famous in the Kava Bar or whatever, but it did like it was a little off-putting because I came in, I'm someone who loves kava, the plant, and we try to do a lot for the community, and it was again one of those times where like I didn't feel welcome. Yeah. So honestly, I remember we were going to sit, but we just got to go.
Yeah. And again, that is rare, because most kava bars are very welcoming. Like most kava tenders are amazing. Like, especially here in Southwest Florida, all the kava tenders that we have met are so amazing. So this is rare, but it does happen.
Yeah. And again, like, hey, for that kava bar, that's great, man. If those people have a place to go, and that's their clientele, and that's their regulars, and that's a spot for them to feel like that's their home. Hey, man, I am all about it. Like, I am all about finding your space. And again, that just goes back to, it's a growing community. More and more people are coming into it, right? So it's just like alcohol bars, right? Alcohol bars, a lot of them have, there's certain themes. You got like country bars. Like I would never go to a fucking country bar, like a what do you call it, like line dancing and shit.
Oh yeah.
Because like I'm not like a country dude. You know what I'm saying? It's like I wouldn't fit in there. I would feel out of place because I don't have a cowboy hat and boots. You know what I'm saying? And like ride horses. So like I wouldn't go to that one. I'd probably go to a different bar. So that's what we're kind of saying. Like as the space grows, you're probably gonna get different types of bars, different types of vibes. But hopefully in general, we always go back to what's great about kava is the idea is that it helps you see past the visuals of a person and it allows you to open up and have discussions, break down barriers, and again, talk to someone that you would never have talked to before, right? Get a fucking Republican and Democrat talking to each other for once about something because 9 times out of 10, they probably agree on the same shit, right?
Yep. We all want the same things.
You probably tell, but I hate politics. I hate parties and stuff. But yeah, like that is the great thing about, Kava because it should be a bridge for the community. It should be a bridge for people to go to a spot, a sober spot, right? Drink these plants, feel good, have good discussions, and make good relationships. And, as we're closing up, again, like, please go support your local Kava Bar, right? Most of them are, like I said, independently owned. So there's real people behind it that are busting their ass to give you a good experience, right? And to make sure that your first time trying Kava or Kratom is a good one. And they want you to come back and they want you to be happy with what you got.
Yeah, so we aren't anti-Kava Bar, but we do want you to know that that's not the only way that you can have kava. You can definitely take this into your own hands, quite literally. Make it for yourself at home. Find the cultivars that you like, the brands that you like, and make it how you like. So you can still make this a more regular, more cost-effective habit. at home, and then go out to those kava bars, find your community, support them, have fun. Let that be a treat. Let that be a fun experience that you look forward to. And that's another thing, is you don't want to take away from that experience. Like, it is a really fun, awesome experience, but if you do that every single day, eventually it's going to get a little boring. And so, save it for, once a week or however often you want to go. But understand that you can do this at home as well, especially as times are hard with money. It really is cost effective. So keep following us for more tips on how to prepare it at home. And yeah, drop us in the comments if you are, someone who does this normally at home, or if it kind of makes you nervous. Let us know why, and let us help you kind of ease into it, your kava experience at home.
Yeah. And with that being said, oh, look at this. We're drinking kava at home.
Ooh, Bula.
Crazy. $1 a shell right here. Bula.